We continue to get closer to the NCAA Tournament, and with each day that passes, our research and analysis becomes more and more critical. Lucky for you, that's what I'm supplying you with today, again, with 4 more teams that scare me for 2024 March Madness, in a bad way, that is. If you missed the first video titled, "These 3 Teams Scare Me for 2024 March Madness, in a Bad Way," be sure to give that a watch. If you already watched it, thank you and welcome back. Today, I'm going to be giving you an additional 4 teams that scare me for 2024 March Madness. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave it a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, feel free to comment your thoughts. There were a lot of good comments on the previous video, and I encourage you to keep them coming. We'll be operating today in the same format as we did last week. I'll go through the 4 teams in increasing order of how scary they are. When I'm calling these teams scary, I mean that in a bad way. I'm scared to predict these teams to make a deep run in the NCAA Tournament, or at least meet their expectations. Per bracket matrix, we have teams projected to be a 5 seed, a 1 seed, a 9 seed, and then another 5 seed in today's video. Let's get started. The first team we'll be discussing today is the Dayton Flyers. Dayton is 21-4 overall, with an 11-2 conference record, seeding them atop the Atlantic 10. Their 2 conference losses have both come on the road, at Richmond and then at VCU. A VCU game in which they lost 49-47, with the teams shooting a combined 37%. Dayton is the class of the A10, but that's not really saying much. The average KenPom ranking of their A10 counterparts is 138.2. It may not be fair to just write them off because they're part of a mid-major conference, but that's in part what I'm doing. It feels like we frequently see a non-Power 5 school thrown in at the 5 seed, and they do earn that spot because they win the games on their schedule, but then we get to the tournament and they don't make much noise. These past 2 tournaments, St. Mary's from the West Coast Conference, were a 5 seed and took care of business in the round of 64, but in 2022 they subsequently lost to 4 seed UCLA, and last year they lost right after to 4 seed UConn. Last year, the 5-12 matchups were all won by the 5 seed, but the 2 years prior, the 12 seeds combined for an impressive record of 4-4. Dayton can find themselves in a precarious position if they find themselves on the 5 line, matching up with some surprisingly dangerous teams also from smaller conferences like Grand Canyon or McNeese State. Here's a quick parallel to draw. Last year, San Diego State from the Mountain West was a 5 seed and went all the way to the national championship. In the final AP poll before the tournament, the Aztecs were ranked 18th. Currently, Dayton is sitting 16th in the AP poll. The difference? Pre-tournament, San Diego State was 14th on KenPom, spoiling their national championship game run, showing us that they were a bit underseeded. Dayton's currently 24th on KenPom, maybe showing us they're a bit overseeded. San Diego State was also part of the 4-bid Mountain West last year, a better conference than this year's A10. Lastly, confirming the Atlantic 10 being a bit weaker than they may seem and causing Dayton to be a potential paper tiger, Dayton has the number 1 defense in the conference, allowing 64.3 points per game. Conversely, their adjusted defensive efficiency on KenPom is 55th in the nation. I know I've bored you to death with these KenPom stats. Don't worry, there's less in the remainder of the video. Moving on to the second team in the video, it's the team that's currently number 3 in the AP poll due to a recent loss, but was the number 1 overall seed in the most recent NCAA tournament projection put out by the NCAA themselves. It's the Purdue Boilermakers. In the past 3 tournaments, Purdue has been a 4 seed, a 3 seed, and then a 1 seed. They've been eliminated by a 13 seed, a 15 seed, and a 16 seed. Their record in those 3 tournaments is 2-3, with 2 round of 64 exits and 1 Sweet 16 appearance. Matt Painter is 17-14 in the NCAA tournament as head coach of Purdue. In 14 tournaments, Matt Painter has made just 1 Elite 8 at Purdue. As I've stated with Shaka Smart, there's some coaches that just have it in March and others that don't. Everything we know indicates Painter is in Shaka territory, a coach that just doesn't have it in March. There's really not much to say about the team itself, but I'm still going to. They're the same as they've been the last few years, where they've had little to no tournament success. You know what you're getting from Purdue. Zach Edey, the most dominant player in the sport. Solid guard play from Fletcher Lawyer, Braden Smith, and the addition of Lance Jones this year, and then solid minutes from Mason Gillis, Ethan Morton, and others. The thing with this team is that you don't really have to shut down Edey to beat them. He's 7'4". He's going to get his points, probably all 23 that he's averaging this season, and then some. But in their 3 losses this season, their guard trio of Lawyer, Smith, and Jones have shot a combined 34.8% from the field, 34.1% from three-point land and have averaged about 34.3 points in those games. If we compare that to their most recent win against Minnesota on February 15th, we see they scored a bit less than they do in losses, but shot far better from both the field and three. Taking a look at their win on February 4th at ranked Wisconsin, they scored a whopping 51 points, shooting way better from the field and better from three. A common theme in those two wins is Smith and Jones do the heavy lifting, while Lawyer provides some extra support in terms of scoring. In the three losses, Lawyer led the trio in points twice. It's no coincidence that in all three of Purdue's losses, Lance Jones has come up small, shooting 26.5% from the field in those games. So what does all this mean? Well, the way to beat Purdue doesn't have to do with Zach Edey. He's going to get his. You can't be overly concerned about that. But limiting the production from the guards, that's how you're going to win. Combine that with Matt Painter's poor tournament track record, namely in the past 3 years, and I'm concerned with Purdue. I'm not saying they should be smashing the panic button, but the writing is on the wall for another early exit. Time and time again, we've seen them put solid teams on the court and inexplicably come up small in March. There's no way you can just rule that out when evaluating them for the 2024 NCAA Tournament. Next up on the list, and I'm beginning to get very concerned with these final two teams, are the Virginia Cavaliers. Similar to Iowa State, who was included in last week's video, Virginia has a top-tier defense, but the same cannot be said for their offense. While the Cyclones' offense is serviceable, the Cavaliers' offense is downright poor. For example, they barely escaped a game against Virginia Tech on February 17th with a 49-47 win, a game in which they shot just 1 for 11 from the free throw line. That's 9% from the charity stripe. They followed that up this past Monday with a loss to Virginia Tech, in which UVA scored just 41 points. They shot 32% from the field and went 2 for 12 on three-pointers. What's my point? Virginia has a phenomenal defense. Nobody's denying that. But their offense is abysmal. I'll reiterate the point I made in regards to Iowa State. You can survive for a bit in the NCAA tournament with an elite defense and a mediocre or even poor offense. But it's very unlikely you'll make a deep run if you have as poor of an offense as Virginia does, ranked 167th in adjusted offensive efficiency, even if you have an outstanding defense like they do, ranked 9th in adjusted defensive efficiency. That being said, I don't think anybody is expecting them to make too much noise anyway, other than Virginia fans themselves. Bracket Matrix projects them to be a 9 seed, which could match them up with a team like Florida in the first round, who has a top 10 offense on KenPom. The Virginia defense can only hold up so long when they've got absolutely nothing doing on offense. Their inability to score will hold them back in the NCAA tournament. We'll just have to keep an eye on matchups to see exactly how far they will go. The final team, the one that scares me the most in a bad way for 2024 March Madness, is the Wisconsin Badgers. Earlier this month, Wisconsin was ranked 6th in the AP poll. 3 weeks later, they're unranked, with a 2-5 record since being ranked 6th. I don't think they ever deserved that generous of a ranking. They were number 11, then a loss at Penn State dropped them to 13. After that, they won at home against Indiana, on the road at Minnesota, and then at home against Michigan State. Wisconsin was favored in all 3 of those games, but apparently that was enough for them to make the jump all the way from 13th to 6th in the poll. Since then, they've only beaten Maryland and Ohio State, 2 teams who sit at the bottom of the Big Ten. But the team who is actually in last place in the Big Ten, Michigan, they beat Wisconsin. Rutgers, who is also a bottom 5 team in the Big Ten, beat Wisconsin as well. Nothing really impresses me about the Badgers. They're 2-5 on the road in conference play, and I don't see any wins on their schedule that jump off the page. They've got a top 20 offense on KenPom, and they are a good team, but they don't really impress me that much. Bracket Matrix projects them to be a 5 seed, which I think is grossly overrating them. Them being a 5 seed particularly scares me because of the vulnerability of them in a 5-12 matchup, as I discussed earlier. I actually think they're a better team than Virginia, but they scare me more because Virginia is probably appropriately slotted in at number 9, while Wisconsin is all the way at 5. Combining the 3 teams from last video and the 4 from this one, if I had to rank in order of how much they scare me, going from least scariest, in a bad way, to most, I would start with Iowa State, then head over to Dayton, Kansas, Purdue, Virginia, Wisconsin, and still all the way as the most scariest team, in a bad way, is going to be Marquette. That does it for this one. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave it a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to hear a rationale on those other teams I just listed, go check out last week's video. Also, be sure to check out the channel for all things 2024 NCAA Tournament and check out the description of this video for the 2024 Barreldelphia Bracket Guide. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.